introduction. Also, thank you very much for having us here. It's a pleasure for us to be able and allowed to present in front of a community. We're pretty much preaching to the conversion, and we're going to explain why we're doing what we're doing. Right, so we come from the English Language Education Department at the University of Muenster. Our job is to educate future teachers of English who will be primary, secondary, and vocational school teachers of English. So that part of where we work in and where they study is placed in, which we have conducted alongside a seminar that we taught twice now and that we are aiming to teach again in the last 3 years. Thanks. Not much of a surprise what we'll be doing. We'll give you brief background information on global English language teaching and teacher education in Germany, give you a brief insight into what we've done in our seminar, with which students we've done so, design and results of our study, and then we'll discuss them and come to a conclusion.
Thank you. We've discussed the theory practice gap for a couple of times now in today's presentations and keynotes and in the introductory session, of course. And what we aim at the English Language Education Department is to put our future teachers into a position to actually implement GELT informed approaches to into the English language classroom later on at schools. So what we need is teachers, future teachers, to be equipped with all the competencies, all the tools, and everything that is necessary to adopt GELT informed and GELT oriented teaching. And part of that, of course, is GELT oriented teaching methods and teaching materials, but also theoretical and practical knowledge of global language teaching, and of course, policy and curricula. What we aimed at in our seminar at the university was teaching materials and theoretical and practical knowledge, because we wanted to prepare our future teachers for the future challenges that they will meet in the English language classroom regarding GELT. So there's quite a bit of movement right now, quite a bit of dynamics in the GELT community in Germany. There's research on materials in GELT classroom, or GELT in classroom, and GELT in teacher education. And at that point, I have to shout out some of my colleagues who are doing the work that I'm going to present right now, who I saw in chat, Philip May, for example, I know he's there, and a lot of other people as well. So when it comes to GELT and materials, only focusing on the German context right now, we have a focus on primary school with Julia editing an issue there. Focus on India, pop music by Michael Westphal, audiovisual text by Peter Schildhauer, Karutzene, and Maya Schulte, who worked on TED Talks specifically and TED-oriented language teaching. And then, of course, there's a teaching practice journal in special issue coming out in May, which I'm also editing, and I have written the editorial article in that as well, coming out for the secondary school and global English language teaching, just offering teachers ways of actually implementing GELT in the classroom. Then, of course, we have comparative analysis of curricula of federal states with Philip Mayer publishing a study of all federal states in Germany. We have foci on, for example, Bavaria with Wieswanger, and a focus on cultural learning, which is emerging. Clark and I just talked about the emerging paradigms of global citizenship education and global English language teaching, but Miriam Beutel in 2018 already looked at cosmopolitan perspectives, and Philip May and I are working on an article on cosmopolitan perspectives in global English language teaching as well. And then GELT in teacher education, we have a huge, the majority, I would say, of research done in Germany in the GELT paradigm is on attitudes and perceptions, concepts and opinions. For example, Hölscher, May 2022, Hartmann 2022, and Jansen, Moore, and Forsbeck 2022. So these are only the most recent pieces of scholarly work on GELT in Germany. But there's quite a body developing right now. And in that context, we tried to fit our GELT seminar, which was taught in the winter term 2020-21 by Julia and myself as a co-taught course, and then again by myself in winter term 2021 to 22. Every time we had around 25 Masters of Education students who are all future teachers of English at lower to intermediate and upper secondary level. We had 15 sessions each time, going 90 minutes each. Some of the contents that we covered in that seminar were modeling Englishes just as a way of introducing our students to those paradigms. Then, of course, the native speaker paradigm, cultural learning, task-based language learning, and a focus on younger learners and why we should start GELT early. And that's the context of the seminar in which the questionnaire study happened, which Julia is going to present now.
Thank you. First of all, we would probably have to admit that this was not truly a questionnaire, but it was statements that had to be rated. We'll show that to you in a second. There's just no term for that, so we call it questionnaire study. And then we had an additional source of data because it turned out that we only had 10 questionnaires eventually that were turned back to us by the 50 students that we had. So we thought, okay, we need to supplement this data somehow. Luckily, we have an external course evaluation run by our university. They analyze the data for us and we just get the results. And there were fabulous points in there that we could nicely use to supplement and triangulate the data that we had from the questionnaire. So within both courses, in the first session, we have run the pre or audit questionnaire now, you know what I mean. Then we had 13 content sessions with the students, and in the last session, we had the post questionnaire, and in the last session, we also run the external course evaluation, which is run online, so there's no influence by us by looking at what the students are doing and filling in. Right. As I said, we only had a run back uptake questionnaires, which was very unfortunate. But so you get an idea of what we did there. We had 20 statements that we asked the students to rate, actually adapted from Lightbound and Spader's SLA book. We do that at the very beginning of their book, which both of us had administered before. And we have taken their design with 20 statements. You can only see one here. And the students just had to rate from fully agree to fully disagree, or I don't know. Items that we had content-wise included a range of GELT-oriented topics, the awareness of today's reality of English, the learner's future use of English, the student's awareness and understanding of global Englishes, the importance of varieties of English, varieties to be used in class and teacher language. This turned out to be a very important point within the seminar. Teaching objectives, methodology, and materials, and yet another important point, error correction, the right, wrong, dichotomy, and accuracy. Again, at this point, we must admit that when we started the seminar 3 years ago and came up with this questionnaire, we were not, let's say, experts on GELT yet. We're still not experts now, but we have started somewhere really soon, yeah, in the questions. So when we came up with these statements, and when we're looking at them now, we are partly asking ourselves what the hell have we done? By now, we would reformulate some of the statements. We'll come back to that within the results section. Right. Looking at the results, we were again thinking, what the hell have we done? Because when I came up with a sort of by hand who ticked what in the pre-questionnaire, you can see that in the picture there, it's sort of all over the place. And we were thinking of, okay, there must be tendencies. They must all have negative opinions in the beginning and then positive opinions in the end. No, not at all. It was partly we were able to see tendencies, partly not at all. A similar result we found when we looked at individual students and their answers, because also there we could only see minor shifts, if shifts at all. There were really just 3 or 4 students on single items with a major shift in opinion and attitude. Again, because of only 10 participants, we didn't even start doing statistical measures like mean or standard deviation, because that didn't make sense when only ended with 10. So what we'll do is we give you pretty much a descriptive insight into the data on some of the most, let's say, interesting items with the most interesting results. Feel free to ask us for more results. We have them all, but there's no time to present them all. You will see the items in gray and then the results in the graphs, obviously. So starting with the sociolinguistic reality of English should have implications for the teaching of English as a foreign language. In blue, you see the pre-test result, the pre-questionnaire result. In orange, you see the post-questionnaire result. And there you see a very clear shift towards fully agree. This is something that we find very interesting and very positive because it does show how with the seminar we could reach the theory practice gap. that Nicola told us about this morning, because they can see that what they are being taught in variation linguistics, and we try to teach them as well, they now also deem interesting for the classroom. In blue, though, you can see that many of them already deemed it important before Part 7, so it was really not just for seminar. Learners should not be penalized for innovative forms that are intelligible. This is one of the items we will clearly restate now, because we don't think that our students understood what we were aiming at. We were aiming at something like, we don't necessarily need a third person singular S. This is not well formulated in the item. Still, we see a positive shift of quite a few students who were very undecisive in the beginning, who now fully agree to that we should not penalize it, not a well-chosen word for that. Teachers need to increase learners' awareness of the globalization of English. An item will see very positive results in the pre-questionnaire, extremely positive results in the post-questionnaire. English teachers in Germany must have a native-like command of a standard variety, such as British or American English. This is something that we have highly and heatedly debated in class, and we actually thought that we had come to quite a, let's say, positive opinion towards that. And you can see a slightly positive shift towards fully disagree, but we still have 5 students in the middle that even agree to that, or are sort of undecided in between. So that is something that we must dig deeper. And again, the item, though, for various reasons, is also not too well formulated. It is most important for our learners to encounter and learn about standard varieties, such as British or American English. Same as with the native-like command of the teacher, we see a slight positive shift, but opinions are still sort of all over the place. What is very positive, though, this is the answer of just one student, and you can see a drastic change here, which we did not have very many of. She fully agreed to this in the pre-test and disagreed to it in the post-test. And we are just hoping that with these changes at the very individual levels of individual students, we can eventually make a change in their teaching practice. And that this is something that they will carry on into teaching practice eventually. It is important to focus on the two standard varieties of British and American English, because the students primarily need to understand the British and American culture. Very positive shift here towards fully disagree. And again, here we can also see a drastic shift from fully agree in the pre-test and then fully, or agree in the pre-test and fully disagree in the post-test. Good. Trying to discuss these results, as I said, particularly in the pre-questionnaire, they were sort of all over the place. In the post-questionnaire, we see slightly more agreement and unity, but certainly not full agreement and unity as we had hoped for, but obviously this is completely unrealistic. What we find positive is that we had no shifts in opinions towards a non-desirable direction. So all shifts in opinion were towards to our desirable direction. And we could only see slightly positive shifts in opinion, but hardly any drastic changes. And we certainly put lots of education students who potentially they had some previous knowledge from our linguistics department, who also focuses on variation linguistics, but not with a lot of focus on teaching. And we're just hoping that when we look at the individual students and those very minor drastic changes, a few drastic changes that we had, that this is eventually going to make a difference that we are looking for. We have to be very careful with these results. All of you know that with only a very low number of participants. And also with what we know now, and I've said that in the beginning, if we redo this, we're planning to redo this, we need to reformulate some of these items. Right, I'll hand over to Ricardo for the second data set.
Well, absolute steep learning curve for everyone. But there was a second phase, and that was the course evaluation, which runs externally at the University of Muenster and is mandatory in every term, which helped us out in these seminars. Because what we do is we have a questionnaire of items, 7-point Likert scales on different aspects of the course, and those are sent to a central faculty in the University of Muenster, and they analyze that for you and then send you back the results. What we are going to focus on in the next 2 minutes is rating of the overall course, which is done between a grade of 1 to 5, 1 being the best and 5 the worst, and room for comments. So the overall rating of each course was stellar for us. The winter term 2020 to 21, 1.1 on a scale from 1 to 5, and then we even managed to top that in the winter term 2021 to 22 with a 1.0 on the scale from 1 to 5. And by that time, students reported that the word has traveled that there is such a course, and people were actually eager to get into the course. We had more people trying to get into them who were actually able to fit in. So that was really cool. When it comes to selected students' comments, I'm just going to leave them there for a second for you to browse. But what becomes apparent in those open comments by students is that, without any forced bias, they highlight that they think the course is highly relevant. And it is highly relevant because it is so topical. Global English is a topical issue, that they think that the course makes students change perspectives when it comes to, for example, fluency versus message versus accuracy. And also the course helped them understand why global English language teaching must play such an important role in language education and in teacher education. Other highlights were that students reported that they learned a lot theoretically, but at the same time learned to connect those theory bits to actual classroom practice. They felt they had the right mindset for GELT already, which is something that we kind of saw in the data before. But still, the course provided an academic basis to personal reflections and possibly subjective theories on how to balance out GELT approaches and current requirements for language teaching. So that was very encouraging for us to see that students think the course is relevant, the topic is relevant. They see why the seminar on GELT would be relevant and desirable in their course of study. They experience the theory-practice relation, which is extremely important for us as language educators or language teacher educators. And overall, the seminar is rated extremely positive, which is of course for our leaders as well. Can't deny that. Of course, our aims go beyond these 2 times that we actually managed to hold this course. We want to offer this GELT seminar every semester, every other semester if possible, possibly even make it compulsory for every student that goes through our program, and increase transdisciplinary teaching approaches. Julia mentioned our stellar applied linguistics department who work with focus on applied variation. And there's a lot of exchange going on right now, which could be deepened to the benefit of our students and of their future students at schools.
Thank you, and that's exactly what I would like to finish our presentation with. We firmly believe that we can make a difference at the basis of our courses, because our students that we teach will be those future teachers who are eventually going to carry this paradigm into the classroom, and he can eventually, probably by the time we retire, serve for the paradigm shift that all of us are hoping for. So future English teachers can serve to this paradigm shift in the long run, which means that GELT is highly relevant and very much needed in English teacher education. And that all future English teachers should learn about and critically reflect on classroom practices and also GELT-oriented teaching practices. Not only future English teachers that we have an impact on though need to make these changes and change of perspective, but also teachers who are in practice already, as well as policymakers, we've discussed this before, need to critically reflect what they are doing and how we can change that and make English language teaching more compliant with what is actually going on in the world outside. I don't think we can close our eyes to this for the next 30 years. It's not going to work. And with that, we would like to thank you very much for your interest and attention.
Thank you very much. And are any questions or comments for your presentation?